Let's play some Mage Knight. Beginning the very first night of our Tovak Solo Conquest replay, where I go through and analyze a game that I've already played for my hopeful learnings, as well as yours and our collective entertainment. Let's start by taking a look at the offer, particularly let's start with the units. And we got the scouts, you can get them from anywhere. We've got the illusionist that can be from a mage tower or a monastery, herbalist, monastery, or a village. And if you recall from our current map, we still have no villages, we still have no monasteries. We only have this trio of mage towers and this one keep wedged over here by the hags. Units look a little challenging like they did last round, but the illusionists and the scouts are maybe potentials. Moving down to the other offers, the advanced actions, we have Force of Nature, Mana Storm, Agility. Agility with this movement of 2, I already have a decent movement card with Temporal Portal, not eyeing that too much. Mana Storm, I think, is just garbage in solo, and Force of Nature is okay, can be situationally really good. Obviously some really good siege attacks. Sometimes the physical resistance for the units becomes just a complete, block 100. Then in the spells, Snowstorm, Called Arms, Meditation. Snowstorm's got a pretty beefy siege ice attack 8, which could be relevant in sieges. Called Arms, typically great, allow you to just pick up a unit. Especially with how challenged I've been in units this game, you would think that I gave Called Arms a little more respect than I do. You'll see that for whatever reason, I just tend to neglect it as an opportunity. I think I know my reasoning why, but when we get a little further along, I'll explain what I think was going on through my head. And Meditation, I don't know, randomly discarding, and just isn't rarely my thing. Let's take a look at tactics. And the 6th tactic is relevant, so I'm glad that it actually showed up. All right, let's go back and look at the map, pull up our hand here, and see what we may want to do. Now, I got in my head that I was like, wouldn't it be great if I could get through these swamps, get to this grassland, and maybe explore these 2 new tiles all in the first turn? Wouldn't that give me some great tempo to do that? And so, amongst all the options for tactics, I ended up selecting Preparation. And the dummy player ended up taking Midnight Meditation. And all right, let's throw these over here, get these out of the way. And what I prepared was to get Temporal Portal. So my idea was to Temporal Portal, use that as essentially a good move card, get onto this plains, and then take advantage of these, several move cards that I have to reveal some tiles. However, as soon as I made that decision, I remembered one very important consideration, which is Temporal Portal is an action. That's what that A is up in the corner. So once I use it to move, I can't move again. And if I used my move, I can't use Temporal Portal to explore. So, questionable start to the night? Maybe. Since I've now come to the grips that I'm probably just going to be stopping on this glade using Temporal Portal, I figured, hey, maybe I should try to see if I can draw some wounds. If you recall, I've got 2 wounds in my deck. So I flip Motivation to draw 2 cards. I get a blue token, and drawing 2 cards with 2 cards in my deck is reasonably good odds. Especially with only, with a 15-card deck, it's something like 25% or something around there. But of course, I drew Mana Draw and Crystallize. So I take Temporal Portal, use it to move to a 1 open space, increasing my hand size by next round by 1, which became pretty handy over the course of the game. Like I said, this card did better than I expected. And while we're here, we might as well crystallize this blue token into a green crystal. I thought green might not be a bad choice. We've still got Concentration down here. I've got Tremor, which is my big knight attack card. Maybe it's useful for Tranquility if somehow I get those 2 wounds in my deck, but I opted to go for green. I can also get blue and red here from the skill, and I've got 2 white dice in the source. And because I'm already at a 6 card hand size and Temporal Portal bumps me up to 6, I decide to take one more shot at trying to get a wound into my hand, and I discard Swiftness. Now, even though I still have Concentration in my deck, and Concentration Swiftness is a great combo, you know, I'm in the second night, I've got Tremor that I would probably use my Gold Crystal. I've got no green in the source, so I had some better move cards in my hand, so I decided to ditch Swiftness. And that's the end of the turn. We can heal a wound from our discard pile. Of course, there isn't one, and we don't have one in our hand, not for want of trying. And Goldex gets his turn. He draws 5 cards. Still has 7 cards in his deck. We draw an additional card for Temporal Portal, and I draw Stamina. So yet again, I do not draw a wound. I decide to take one last attempt at trying a wound, and I play Tranquility, draw a card, get Cold Toughness. Now, that was a little bit questionable. I tend to not like playing Tranquility to draw a card. I think it's better to just hold on to it and actually use it for something useful, even if you're just playing it sideways. But I really felt that the odds must have to go in my favor at some point to draw a wound, which at this point, we've already taken so much time, it's kind of arguable well, how useful that it would be anyway. So I finally decide that it is time to move on and see if we can do something about this Mage Tower. So first we play Mana Draw with a white die from the source. We set this white die to a blue, and we get 2 blue tokens. Then we play Stamina. We use... forgot we had our black hiding under there. See, this thing, I would have forgotten to draw my black, but it did it for me. Actually, I would have remembered when we needed it. Play Stamina to move on to the plains and explore into this tile here, which is a keep and a maze. Now, this is a pretty important part of the game. Because what I do next kind of dictates where I go from here. So, do I go kill this Mage Tower, get stuck in these forests, don't have to worry about this hag at all, I can come in here and go this way, I've got a mine, I could get some mana, this is a great spot to explore into these multiple tiles. I could also just explore from here and see what I get, but I felt that because, you know, we're already on, what is it, finishing the second turn of the game, I have consumed 3, 4, 5, 6 cards of my deck and not really accomplished a whole lot. I decided to go after and focus on this maze. You know, looking back, kind of controversial. I think because I didn't know what this Mage Tower was, I was a little nervous about spending a bunch of movement to go in there blind. Not having a hand to do much with it this turn. You know, it'd be interesting for the sake of science to see what would have happened. I mean, it is a Fire Mages. I could have taken those 2 wounds. It's a fortified 5 armor. Tremor would have brought its armor down to a 1, and I could have, you know, plinked it off with March. I could have used Cold Toughness with this blue to probably block at 6. Used a crystal, used this black token. So I could have killed this turn pretty handily. But I did not do that, and I had no idea that those were Fire Mages under there. Would have been much easier if I did. So I played my second Stamina, used up the second blue crystal for 4 move, and moved on to the maze. And that was my end of the turn. I re-rolled the dice to green. Goldex. 4 cards left in his deck. I had an additional thought too with going into this maze was to get to this village. If I went into this Mage Tower and then had to backtrack all the way here to get to this village, I probably wouldn't have done that. I would explore and seen if there was a better option. But because I am so unitless, the village was, you know, reasonably attractive to maybe go after the scouts or maybe the herbalists. So that was another part of the consideration. So now we descend into the maze. I wanted to go for the 6th portion, the move 6 portion of the maze, because I love artifacts. I probably prioritized them too highly above most things, which is why I burn every monastery that I see, which is a little sad because we have even yet to see a monastery for me to see it to then burn it. So we played red crystal craft. We got a blue crystal and a red token. I played instinct, powered by the red token, with march for move 4, move 6. That gets us into the 6th level of the maze. I don't even have to forget that I can only bring 1 unit in because I have no units to bring. And what do we face down in this maze? We are facing a crypt worm. Now, let's talk a little bit about the decision to go into the maze to begin with, drawing a brown unit with these cards in my hand. Tremor being the important card. We do have a black die in the source. We have a green crystal over here, so we're able to... These are going to be unfortified, so, best case, we're reducing an enemy's armor by 3. If we go and we look at what brown enemies we might possibly face, we can kill all of them with the exception of the Shadow. The Shadow has arcane immunity, so therefore Tremor's not going to work on it. Nobody's resistant to a green resistance isn't a thing. So the Minotaur, he'd be down to a 1. Everyone else, we would either be able to block their attack and kill them, or take their attack and kill them. But, we had a 2 out of 15 chance of drawing the Shadows, which is not insignificant, and I would have been able to do nothing other than block their attack with cold toughness, and then not be able to put together 4 measly attack to be able to kill them. 1, this would be the block, and here's 2 attack. So, little risky. We drew the Cryptworm, which is actually probably one of the better creatures that we could draw, mainly because he is fortified. So we played Cold Toughness with a blue crystal. That gives us block of 5 plus 6 for his little fortification icon, which blocks the Cryptworm directly. Then we played Tremor, black die, green crystal. To reduce his, because he's fortified again, he gets -6. So he is now a 1, and we kill him with a lowly promise. That is, he can barely show himself amongst all the other brown units with such a pathetic way of dying. And we re-rolled this die to green, and that is the end of the turn. Let's put our shield on there. I think technically I'm supposed to put it over the 6. I don't know if that matters. And let's go get our reward. Druidic Staff and Golden Grail, continuing the streak of me drawing Druidic Staff almost every time. I think this was a pretty easy choice. It's Druidic Staff. If I discard a green card, I can get heal 3. Golden Grail gives me heal 2, albeit it does give me a little bit of fame. Maybe that fame would be relevant to a level up. We still do have those 2 wounds in our deck, but I can still get the heal plus a whole bunch of other utility from Druidic Staff, and that is what I took. Coldix, down to his last card of his deck, so we've got 2 more turns. Finally drew a wound. So let's take a quick look what's left in our deck. We've got Threaten, Swiftness, Concentration, March, and our remaining wound. And the ever popular Rage for 2 moves, I decide to explore this tile. Ultimately, I'm still looking at this village to play Threaten in to try to get one of the units. Feel another village, got some stone throwers up here, which are not really interesting, and a mine here. I then, because I know we're angling for a Threaten, I take Druidic Staff, I discard Shield Bash, and I get us 2 red crystals. And end the turn. Dummy draws the last card. we play Concentration Swiftness for 3 move. Move on to the village, at which time we threaten for 5 influence. And with 5 influence, we have enough to recruit the scouts and get a Mark of Shame at the end of the turn. We draw our remaining card, which is March. Coldix calls the end of the round. We play a March with a green die to reveal this tile. We are now swimming in villages. Still no monasteries. We are at the end of the night. Don't know what the green got re-rolled into. Doesn't really matter. And we decided... This is the questionable part. We decided to take Call to Arms and move it to the discard. And, you know, we only have 1 unit. We're coming into the second day. We're really challenged on locations currently to buy places. We have no easy to access mage towers anymore. We have no easy to access keeps unless I go backwards, and we only have villages. It would have seemed it would have made a lot of sense to keep Call to Arms in play. Now, what I may have been thinking is that we're still at least another round away from core tiles. We've got to put 1 more countryside tile before we get to the core tiles. Would have been great if we could have done that this night. So we're 1 more day or 1 more round away from accomplishing that, which, you know, ideally you'd want to use Call to Arms for a gold unit. That's maybe one of the reasons. And not only that, but we're coming into the daytime, so we're 2 rounds away from being able to play this at night, unless I'd be able to go into a dungeon. If I was able to go into a dungeon, would I maybe be playing Tremor with the black die? So. And I'm not too thrilled about the top side of Call to Arms. Usually, I like to, generally there's something useful to use, but sometimes not. So I think that's my reasoning. I don't know. Looking back, I think that's questionable. I think I maybe had some logic behind it, but that's what I decided to do. And we end the round. All right, let's recap how our night went. We consumed a whole bunch of resources sitting here in this magic glade hoping to draw wounds that never came, at which point we decided to venture over here to this maze, went into the 6th level, fought ourselves a crypt worm, killed him rather handedly with a promise to the face, which got ourselves a druidic staff, journeyed over here to the village, and picked ourselves up some scouts. So, artifact, 1 unit, explored a few tiles, only... remember we were starting off on the 4th level here, got ourselves into, we were starting here, so we didn't even really get ourselves very deep into the 4th level. Obviously, this key level 5 so that we can get the 6 card hand. Not the most successful night, but, on the back of what I think was a pretty successful day. We're still very, very troubled with units, but we head into day 2.